And now for our feature presentation.
Let's go.
Turning Red marks the 25th film released by Pixar. To celebrate this amazing studio's milestone, I've decided to review every Pixar movie from Toy Story to Luca. I've already talked about every Toy Story movie on my channel and Luca, so I'll keep my thoughts brief on those. We got 24 films to cover, so let's start this thing. We're gonna be here for a while, so get your popcorn ready, put some butter on it, then drink some butter soda. Let's go. First impressions are everything, and Pixar made a really great first impression with their first film. It wasn't just their first film, it was the first full CGI film ever made, and it could have been a disaster, but it's not. It was almost a disaster because in the original version of the film, Woody was an asshole, dude.
Say, you weren't thinking of flying, were you?
Well,
You know Andy loves toys that can fly.
and me on.
You know, Andy loves toys that he can find.
Toy Story is a genuine classic. The only problem I have with it is kind of personal. I've just seen it way too many times. But it's still the perfect first film for Pixar to set themselves as one of the greatest animation studios of all time.
My dad doesn't think that.
He doesn't, huh?
Nah, he's betting you're gonna die. Your dad's right. He's gonna die.
How did they mess that up? When I tell people that I can name every Pixar movie, I always end up leaving this one towards the end of the list because it's kind of forgettable. It's not a bad film whatsoever. In fact, I think it's decent. It's just kind of generic. There are a lot of strong points though within this generic story. Kevin Spacey plays a really great villain that's honestly underrated. Maybe he's so good because he plays a good villain in real life. The characters are extremely likable. It just sucks because when I say this movie is kind of cliche, it has that whole liar reveal storyline that I'm not too fond of. Sadly, I don't have a lot to say about A Bug's Life. It's just a decent movie, but flawed. I think it's better than the DreamWorks Ant movie that came out the exact same year, but at least they got the number of legs ants have right.
Are you saying I'm stupid?
No.
Do I look stupid to you?
Remember the Pixar bloopers? Those were great.
Keep looking.
Oh, you're going too slow. Let me take the wheel.
It's too fast. How could you even tell what's on?
I can tell.
With a great franchise like Toy Story, it's really hard to pick which one is the best. For me personally, it's Toy Story 2. It improves on everything that worked in the first movie and cranked it up. Even the emotional moments are a lot stronger. When Somebody Loved Me is honestly one of the most tear-jerking Pixar scenes of all time. It goes deeper into Woody's character and how he's conflicted on being with Andy until he grows up and is forgotten about, or staying in a museum where he can't be played with but admired forever. In my Toy Story series review video, I talked more about why Toy Story 2 is my favorite amongst the four. So if you haven't watched that one, go check it out. But for now, just know that Toy Story 2 is my favorite Toy Story.
Sir, that's not her door.
I know. It's yours.
Monsters, Inc. is such a cute and simple movie about monsters being scared of humans, and it's a simple concept, but they expand upon it in a really great way. My biggest problem with the movie is I wish they showed more of the Monsters, Inc. universe outside of the facility, because they set up this imaginative world and it feels like it's barely scratching the surface. That doesn't make the movie have a huge downfall at all, because Mike and Sully's banter and relationship is honestly the best. I think they are the best duo in Pixar history.
Hey, genius, you want to know why I bought the car? Huh?
Not really.
To drive it! You know, like on the street with the honk-honk and the vroom-vroom and no walking involved.
Give it a rest, will you, Butterball? Come on, you could use the exercise.
They just bounce off each other effortlessly, and it's really a great performance by John Goodman and Billy Crystal. The whole concept of children's screams powering their world is just really neat and creative. The animation is a huge step up from the other two Pixar movies, and Sully's fur still holds up extremely well today. I want to say thank you and great job to the animators who had to spend their time working on every single strand of hair on this guy's body. Randall is a very entertaining villain, but I love how at the end it twists around and we see that there's a bigger threat than him.
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die.
And the final scene of the movie always brings me to tears. You could show me this one scene without me having to see the previous parts of the movie leading up to this, and I would still cry.
I'm H2O intolerant.
Finding Nemo is an absolute classic. It genuinely is one of the best Pixar films of all time. It's a movie that's extremely well written. Dory is annoying on paper, but on screen she isn't bad at all, and they do just the right amount with her. This film came out in 2003, and the water animation still holds up extremely well today.
Nemo! Nemo! No! Nemo!
Shark Tale, you came out a year later and you look pretty bad. Your animation is not that great. Why is that?
Stop. Oscar time.
The things Marlin and Dory encounter in the movie aren't just random, they're woven into the story and it's very intricate to the plot. Each threat they encounter, Marlin becomes more and more determined to find his son until the moment where he breaks down, but is lifted up again by Dory. One thing I absolutely love about Finding Nemo is they don't beat over the head why Marlin is so protective of his son. And when he's reunited with his son at the end, it's really rewarding seeing Marlin not be so uptight anymore. The Nemo subplot isn't as interesting to me. I mean, it's engaging, but just not as interesting as Marlin and Dory going through the sea. Other than that, this movie is top tier Pixar and it's one of the best films of all time. My prayers go out to the aquarium workers who every day have to hear kids go, "Mom, look, it's Nemo," whenever they see a clownfish. I'll be praying for y'all. I'm sure it's annoying.
Huh? Oh, come on! You gotta admit this is cool!
I cannot wait to tear this movie apart. The Incredibles is not good. It's incredible. I gotcha, didn't I? We live in a world where we have these big, grandiose superhero films that all connect to each other to share a cinematic universe, but it is so refreshing going back to The Incredibles with a movie just being a movie, not trying to connect to anything. Except for that, but other than that, this movie doesn't have to worry about connecting to anything else. The characterization here is absolutely perfect in an incredible way. It's never stated in the movie, but I love how Brad Bird tells everyone that the reason why each member has their own powers is because of the family dynamic. I really think this is a Pixar movie that is a true family film, where it's actually equally enough for kids, but really written maturely for adults. Rewatching this movie, I noticed so many subtle things with the amazing animation, like how when the plane is coming down, Helen doesn't look up, but looks at the reflection in the water. I never noticed that until now. Syndrome is without a doubt the best Pixar villain of all time. The reason he turns evil because he was a huge fanboy but got mistreated and disrespected by Mr. Incredible feels extremely relevant for today's time. Every single action set piece is iconic and I remember it all. Even when I was 5, I knew this was like peak cinema. And the music that goes along with the action scenes, oh my god. Ooh, I especially love the saxophone during this part right here. Incredibles is a well-written, surprisingly mature superhero film in animated fashion. It's really incredible.
Press the gas pedal and I'm gonna go forward. NASCAR, yeah!
Just like any little boy my age, I love cars. I love playing with cars, and this movie was my favorite film of all time when I was little. But growing up, you start to realize that it's kinda lame. One of the worst things about this movie is its protagonist. He is extremely unlikable in a lot of parts.
It looks awful. Well, it matches the rest of the town.
And I know he's supposed to be this way until the end where he learns his lesson where he needs to be nicer, but during that point in the movie, you kind of just like, screw you, dude. The world of Cars is very unique and creative, but the thing is, it asks more questions than it answers. Like, who built the cars in the first place? Where are the humans? Why do the cars have doors if there's no humans in them? Why can't the tractors talk? Why are they the only ones that don't speak English or anything? How do cars have sex and reproduce, or are they just made? There's so many questions. I have a lot more. Even though it's cliche, I can't deny that the climax of the film is actually really nice.
I taught him that. Good job.
I used to have a Mater alarm clock when I was little, and it would wake me up at the middle of the night at like 3 a.m. Imagine just being a kid and hearing this at night.
Hey, wake up, sleeping beauty.
The first Cars is the best of the franchise, but it's also a little bit of a misstep from Pixar. It's not up to their usual standards, but it's gonna get a lot worse, trust me. I don't know what ingredients they use to cook up a great film like this, but it's really good, and watching rats cook, I don't know what it is, but it makes me want to cook. You know what? The plot is simple. A rat wants to cook in the kitchen, but he can because he's a rat, you know? A simple plot can be expanded upon if it's well written. Ratatouille is really well written. After 20 years, I think Ratatouille is still Pixar's hidden gem when you look through the Pixar catalog. But every element is crafted to its best capability and it all works. And not really crafted, but cooked. My biggest issue with the movie is it's really hard to suspend your belief when he can control Linguini by his hair. But since this movie is basically a masterpiece, I won't be deducting any major points. You can tell there was a lot of care and passion put into this project. It's really underappreciated as one of Pixar's best films and one of the best films of all time. WALL-E is one of the films that I consider true art. It's like looking at a painting from afar, but the closer you get to it, you see the little details and the deeper meaning behind it. From afar, it's just a movie about the last robot on Earth who's made to clean up stuff, and then he meets another robot and they fall in love. And out of all the films ever made about two people in love, this is without a doubt one of the best ones in the history of ever. And I think it's because the writing is done so well. The first act barely has any dialogue, but it conveys such a rich and emotional story. And it doesn't tell you everything right off the bat, but when we get to the part with the spaceship, it's woven into the story seamlessly.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
Turns out still using that joke is a felony. Guess I better not drop the soap. That one's the death penalty.
The movie shows us that we really need to take care of ourselves and the earth, but it doesn't do it in a pandering way at all. And the scene where Eve kisses Wall-E is one of the most uplifting things in cinema. It is a scene that makes me cry tears of joy every single time. This is what I love about Pixar. They can take the simplest idea and expand upon it until it's a perfect masterpiece. The cinematography is outstanding. The themes are amazing. WALL-E is genuinely a masterpiece. It's a simple love story of two robots, but it also has a nice message about why we should keep things nice on this planet that we live in. This is the movie that's going at the top of my Pixar list, but there is another movie waiting for it that will soon top it. You'll just have to find out and see. You know, I bet over half of y'all thought that Up is going to be the one to top it, but it's not. I mean, the movie is definitely up there with one of Pixar's best. you know what I'm saying? Let's just get the obvious out of the way. Carl and Ellie's married life montage is one of the best openings in any film. It truly shows the joys of being married to the one that you have fallen in love with, and how you have to tackle the downfalls of everything, but you have each other to go through it with. Even though Ellie never gets to Paradise Falls, it shows that Carl was her adventure the whole time, not some adventure to some island or a place. The love is the adventure, and that's really cheesy, but honestly, this gets me emotional every single time. Married life is perfect in every single way. It truly makes the film great, but I don't think the movie is a masterpiece, even though the opening is.
I don't see him much.
He's got to be home sometime.
Well, I called, but Phyllis told me I bug him too much.
Phyllis, you call your own mother by her first name?
Phyllis isn't my mom.
Oh.
Up's greatest strength is its use of subtlety and pathos. It is such an emotional movie, and it's done to perfection. The emotional moments hit you harder than Alameda Slim getting hit by a rabbit.
What blazes is going on here?
If you remember this movie, I'll cash app you $100. My issue with Up is that I think the emotional moments make this a true masterpiece to some, but I don't think the adventure aspect is all that great. And don't get me wrong, the movie is great. I just don't think it's perfect. There's not a single bad thing about this movie. Well, except for that this movie came out in 3D, and you can tell in one shot that it was supposed to be just for the 3D audience, and it looks really bad. Still better than Buck Wild though. Every aspect of this movie is either great or perfect, but the problem is the adventure itself just doesn't get me super invested into. Every emotional moment is perfect, and it saves the film a lot.
The Ellie badge.
Even though the adventure aspect isn't as great as the rest of the film, this movie is in my top 10 Pixar films of all time. Toy Story 3 is a perfect send-off to the toys of this magical series. I watched many movies as a kid, and I laughed my way through them all, and even when there are sad moments, I'll admit, it just got kind of boring. But Toy Story 3 is the first movie to ever make me cry. When a movie series is intended to be a trilogy, the third movie should always end off with finality, and Toy Story 3 does this. Toy Story 3 is what every final movie in a trilogy should be. An emotional powerhouse that gives us all the characters we love and gives them a great send-off for their next adventure. Finally! Finally, I can talk about the worst Pixar movie of all time. I have been waiting for this moment. God, for the longest time, I had a winning streak with Pixar, saying nothing but good things and occasional bad thing. Here, there's only one good thing I can say. No, the compliment isn't even towards you, Cars 2. Nah, step aside for a second. Puss in Boots, you did a great thing. We all like Donkey, but the thing is, he's really annoying, and you guys had the chance to make a movie about him, and you didn't do it. Instead, you did a movie for a solo character that's not annoying, Puss in Boots, and made a really good and underrated film. You know what? That's the crazy thing. Pixar, I expected you to do a smart move like that, but no, you made a film centered around the most annoying character in the Cars universe. Both of those movies came out the exact same year, and I can't believe DreamWorks got to dance on Pixar's grave. The story of the first Cars fit really well into the universe, and what does the sequel do? They do a spy movie, and they just go berserk. The writing is absolutely terrible. We have a scene where Mater has a bomb on him. Instead of saying, Lightning McQueen, I have a bomb, don't come close, they do this.
I'm the bomb!
Yes, Mater, you are the bomb. That's what I'm trying to say here. You've always been the bomb, and you'll always be the bomb.
Stay away!
No!
Cars 2 is an absolute embarrassment, and I wonder if the Pixar executives would want to change their fate, and if they could, would they?
You had the chance to change your fate. Would you?
Brave has the humor of a DreamWorks movie, the visuals of a Pixar movie, and the story of a standard Disney movie. For me, this movie is a really mixed bag. When it hits, but sometimes, and most of the time, it's not all that great. When I say it has the humor of a DreamWorks movie, this is what I mean. Imagine having to work for Pixar and animate this scene. When I say this movie is your standard Disney movie, what I mean is if I had a nickel for every time a person turned into a bear to learn how to be a parental figure, I would have 2 nickels.
Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
The visuals are extremely appealing. I'm pretty sure Merida's hair took like 5 million years to make, kind of like Sully's, and it still holds up. Brave is honestly one of those Pixar movies that is just really mediocre. It's just the middle line between good and bad.
Come on, Karen, we're falling behind.
Please don't call me Karen.
Well, that aged extremely well. Monsters University is nothing special, but it is a really fun and entertaining movie. Like I said before, the best duo in Pixar history to me is Mike and Sully, and this time we get to see them be more of enemies than friends, and that's a really cool dynamic that's really nice to see. Monsters University is what a prequel should do, build upon the characters that we knew in the previous film, and they do it in a tremendous way. This time the center is all around Mike and how he wants to be a scarer, which is contrasted from the first film where he was just a jokester and Sully's sidekick. Mike and Sully get a team that's not that great and they compete in the scare games, and Mike just wants to be a really great scarer, and it's kind of a bittersweet ending where he realizes that that's not what he was meant to do. He finds this out in a scene that's not the most emotional Pixar scene, but it does a lot with the characterization of Mike and Sully, and it gives it even more weight when we see them in the first film.
Mike, I know how you feel.
Don't do that. Please don't do that. You do not know how I feel.
Mike, calm down.
Monsters like you have everything. You'll never know what it's like to fail because you were born a Sullivan.
Yeah, I'm a Sullivan. I'm the Sullivan who flunked every test. The one who got kicked out of the program. The one who was so afraid to let everyone down that I cheated.
Also, there's this underrated line.
Enjoy the attention while it lasts, boys. After you lose, no one will remember you.
Maybe. But when you lose, no one will let you forget it.
Oh, boy, that is a good point.
And there are some moments that are actually genuinely funny.
Because we have everything we need to win right here. Heart. No, me. I'm going to win the race for us.
All right, that's very cute.
It may not do everything right, but Monsters University is a very solid prequel. What I love about Pixar is they have made some of the best and influential films ever made. Everyone has a different all-time favorite Pixar movie. I have always been dying to tell you guys what my favorite Pixar movie is. And now here is my chance. When people say Pixar, everyone thinks of Toy Story, WALL-E, Ratatouille, The Incredibles, but my mind always goes to Inside Out. It's about an 11-year-old girl who has to move to a new state, and she's extremely sad about it, and her life is guided through 5 emotions: joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger.
It's amazing. My girls were completely engrossed by it when we were watching it, because it really does make you feel like you're inside this 11-year-old girl.
In a profoundly wholesome way.
Saying that Inside Out is a beautiful masterpiece isn't doing it any justice. There's just so many great things I love about this movie. This review is coming from the bottom of my heart. Inside Out is a film that has touched me so much.
In a profoundly wholesome way.
In a literal sense, it's Pixar's most human film because it dives deep into the emotions of the human brain. It's a movie that has so many creative layers, like the train of thought being an actual train of thought. I know that sounds simple, but everyone uses that phrase, and the fact that we get to see it in this movie, it's cool.
Train of thought, right on schedule.
They do so many creative things with the head of a person that is just remarkable. The lesson at the end of the movie is what makes this one of the best films I've ever seen. It taught me something that day I saw this movie in a theater. It's okay to be sad. Joy spends the entire movie trying to keep Riley happy and keep sadness away from the controls, but the thing is, it's fine to be sad. And when you're sad, it makes you appreciate the happiest things in your life even more. And that's a lesson I have never seen taught in an animated film. I have more movies in Pixar's catalog to cover, but I'll be back to review this movie more in depth at some point in the future. It's just not fair to me to make this a 10-minute segment when the other ones are like 3 minutes long. But this is the definitive Pixar movie for me. But The Good Dinosaur? That's another story. One thing I can give The Good Dinosaur is the animation is top notch, but the movie feels like it's an animation test. They spend so much time on this beautiful landscape and the environment, but there's no story to get attached to. The movie is really uninteresting and the plot is just boring, but it kept my attention because of the visuals, but that's not really fair. There's like one great scene because it's a beautiful quiet moment between Arlo and the boy dog or whatever he is, and it's a really sweet thing, but then this happens? This was probably the most engaging scene just because I felt like I was high, but hopefully the next Pixar movie isn't as boring as this. Kinda like Monsters University, Finding Dory is a really solid movie. It's about another fish trying to find a family member. This time it's thematically different because Dory's short-term memory loss isn't play for laughs, but it's the emotional center. Everything with Dory is great, and the new cast of characters are very entertaining and enjoyable. What truly bogs this movie down for me is it feels like the writers wrote themselves in a corner with Nemo and Marlin. They really don't have anything to do, and the way they get to Dory is just by conveniences, and it's not really written that well. The climax of the movie doesn't even feel natural. In the first film, there was a net that had all the fish in it, and they had to swim down. Fitting. In this one,
what lies before you represents the third and final part of the marine life mission.
Finding Dory is a solid but flawed sequel. Cars 3 starts off extremely strong with the downfall of Lightning McQueen's racing career. The movie's animation is actually extremely well done, especially this scene on the beach. Look at the sand, it looks so realistic. Mater is put in timeout for this movie because he messed up Pixar's reputation, so he only gets 2 scenes in the entire movie. So that's kinda good, I guess. And it's a good movie because it's not Cars 2. Other than that, it's really, really boring, and I have nothing to say about it anymore. Okay, here we are, another Pixar classic. For me personally, this movie is very educational to me because I didn't know a lot about the Day of the Dead, but it taught me so much about the topic. I love how they have a celebration of the Day of the Dead, but really this movie is about the celebration of life, and that's a really unique take on everything thematically. This movie isn't technically a musical. I mean, I can see this becoming a Broadway stage play at some point, but the music here is very nice, especially the final song in the movie, which is an absolute tearjerker. The animation is very lively and colorful, especially when we get to the Land of the Dead. Coco is among Pixar's best films, and it's a great love letter to Mexican culture. Incredibles 2 is not incredible, but it is very good. What brings this movie down is the villain. This movie could have been incredible if we had a better written villain. Aside from a really good monologue scene, the villain just feels very underwhelming. The movie's animation is great and it's a big improvement from the first, but if you saw this movie in a double feature in a theater like I did, the animation is going to be really jarring at first. The action scenes are really slick and badass. Every action scene is more engaging than the last. I really like how they made Helen be the center of the film's action and Mr. Incredible staying at home this time. Anyone who watched the first Incredibles back in the early 2000s know we have all been waiting for a sequel, and this is a very worthy continuation. Toy Story 4 may have not been necessary, but it is a really great epilogue for Woody, but not his friends. This truly is the Woody movie, and even though he has been the main characters for the past 3 films, the other toys were just as important as him, but they aren't really given a lot to do here. Like I said earlier in this video, I've reviewed every Toy Story movie in another video I made, so I'll just say that this is the 3rd best Toy Story, and it's very, very good. Onward is a really good movie at points, but there's some moments where you feel like the film is barely scratching the surface of what its world is all about, kind of similar to my problem with Monsters Inc. What I love about Onward though is how impactful it is if you're an older brother or just a brother of a sibling in general. I watched this movie with my younger sibling and it hit me right in the heart at the end, and the ending emotional moment in this film is very unpredictable and it took me by surprise. The movie is predictable though with its characterization and what the characters are going to go through, but other than that, this is a really heartwarming film. It's not one of Pixar's best, but it is a nice watch. Soul is Pixar's most mature film to date because it deals with the topics of life and death and what someone should do with their life and how they should perceive it. It's not every day you get an animated movie about life and its joys and its downfalls and how we should take it all in. For kids, this movie is probably really boring, but as a young adult myself, I found it captivating how it taught me that life isn't just one set path. It's many paths filled with bad things and good things, but life is truly beautiful no matter what bad things may happen. Soul is a film that occurred during the pandemic, like at the highest point of the pandemic, where not a lot of people were allowed to go outside, and it's a movie that we needed at that time because it showed even though these bad things are happening, we can appreciate the small things and beauty in life that keep us going. Soul is an impactful, unique film that teaches a little thing about life and what we go through every day and how we can make the most of every situation. It is truly a beauty. Like I said at the start of this video, I've already reviewed Luca on my channel, so I'll keep my thoughts brief. This movie is very, very relaxing. It's not one of Pixar's most complex, but it's good for what it is. This movie proves that Pixar can make a film good without having to be complex and deep and meaningful, and it's a very solid watch. Rewatching Pixar movies taught me something. Even though there are some low points, when they hit the highs, they go really high and soar in the air, and have made some of the best films of all time. Not just of animation, but in cinema in general. I'm hoping Turning Red will be a really great Pixar movie, but for right now, here is my ranking of all 24 films that have been released. Tomorrow, we'll be taking a look at Turning Red.